The Qin ruled the most westerly of several warring states for over 600 years before they conquered the others and united China.
It is one united country, a pretty powerful one at that. It could all have been so different if it wasn't for the first emperor 2,000 years ago, who took 7 separate kingdoms and created one state.
The first emperor set the template for modern China. He centralized rule across his vast empire with ruthless organization backed by military might. He created an everlasting version of his victorious army. 7,000 terracotta warriors guard his tomb, ready to spring into action against the ghosts of his enemies. In his short reign of 11 years, the first emperor created a coherent society with strict laws governing every aspect of life.
Lady, can I have some mushrooms?
Standard units of weight and measurement meant that business could be done fairly across the empire with a new single currency. He built roads linking the former warring states and fixed the width of cart axles so the ruts on those roads would be uniform. Famously, he secured his empire from barbarian attack with a great wall to the north, a wall rerouted and rebuilt by successive emperors over the next 2,000 years. Chinese people have always known their first emperor was buried here, but there was no record of the terracotta army. It was discovered in 1974 when a peasant digging a well saw a pottery head looking up at him. The Chinese government began excavating, bringing in workers from a local commune and captured it on film. The first warriors went on display in 1979. This model 3rd century BC army is in battle formation. There are columns of infantry in different types of battle dress, and teams driving wooden chariots which have long since rotted away, each drawn by 4 horses. These are the faces of people that lived, loved, and fought over 2,000 years ago. And they're all the more important because they're the only Qin statues in existence. Only about 20% of the pit has been excavated. The columns stretch back much further, with thousands more terracotta warriors still buried. And that's not the whole story. Close by is another smaller pit. Here, partially excavated, are archers and cavalry, and more infantry to support the main army. And there's a third pit, a command post for the army with high-ranking officers. There was also an ornate canopied chariot which is disintegrated, with charioteers holding the reins.
When you're lucky enough to make history programs, you come to a huge number of places and you see all sorts of amazing things, and often you have to get terribly excited about them. But here, today at the Terracotta Army, I've been completely overwhelmed. This is the most extraordinary thing I've ever seen.
The people who built this vast army were part of a massive logistical operation, and this is what underpinned Qin Shi Huangdi's success. If you can manufacture and build on such a massive scale, you can mobilize and supply armies for long periods. That means you can defeat your enemies in war. Archaeologists have a good idea of how the Qin workers constructed the terracotta army. First, they dug a pit with access ramps and built walls of compressed earth to create corridors. Then they closed off the pit with a wooden roof. They then carried the warriors down the ramps into the corridors. Presumably they had some form of lighting, as of course it would have been dark. It must have taken skill to carry the heavy warriors, horses and chariots into the cramped spaces. Once the army was in place, the roof was covered in matting, the entrances were sealed, and earth piled on top. The underground army was not designed to be seen by human eyes, and it remained hidden for over 2,000 years. There's something many of us don't realise about the warriors. When they were entombed, they didn't look as they do now.
Wow. Look, these are the warriors that have got pigment on them.
God, this comes as a real surprise to me.
Well, yes, they're not terracotta coloured at all. They were brightly painted. This is the result of some conservation work which has been done with the Germans, and they've come up with this technique of preserving the pigment.
So you've got this sort of flesh-coloured face.
Yeah.
And then these wonderful red, the detail of the red holding the armoured plates together. And then this fantastic, what colour's that?
This is pan purple, it's called.
It's electric. I mean, it's so bright, isn't it? It's extraordinary.
It is incredible. It's very rare, this colour. But, I mean, to think that they had purple armour, it just seems incredible. Purple, yellow, pink, blue, red.
Do we know if this is a sort of accurate depiction of the kind of colours they'd wear into battle?
Well, the thing is that we don't have any evidence about what the armour looked like, what the clothes looked like, except for the warriors that have been excavated from the pit. So actually this is our evidence. Whether the colour was the colours that the clothes and armour would have been when they went into battle, or whether they were actually in ceremonial armour and dress, I don't know.
Pit 1, staggering enough, but imagine if they were all in their original colours.
It would have been incredible, wouldn't it? It would have been so bright. They would have looked amazing.